Hello friends, it's Simone. I'm here to share my final thoughts on my Summer of Bottles project that I started in June and that lasted all the way through to the middle of August as I'm wrapping this up. And I wanted to share with you my thoughts, what exactly the project was, how I did it, and some highlights. Okay, so I had noticed previously in April, May, that I didn't use many of my bottles. And especially while I was using all the samples during my 31 inks, 31 pens, 31 letters, I felt really drawn to using inks that I had in my stash, bottles that I knew that wouldn't go anywhere, that I wouldn't have to think about, do I want to buy a bottle of this? No, I knew I already had one. I also noticed that I hadn't really used any of the bottles that I had purchased since the San Francisco Pen Show in 2023. And that just felt really odd. Why wouldn't I use the inks that I purchased in bottles? So I needed to do something about that. And that's how this Summer of Bottles idea took hold. I structured it in a way that I hoped to be sustainable for me. And that meant that I knew that our summer break, summer holidays, kids would be home from school for a while. I knew that I would go on vacation. So I knew all of that before I started planning. And so I hoped to make this whole idea sustainable for me. And the way that I did it was that I would ink up a pen a day for the first 15 days of June. And then I would continue in a slower fashion, skip a little bit of time during June and July, and then use only 3 pens per week. This way, I would be able to get through all of my fountain pen ink bottles, fountain pen ink bottles doesn't sound right, before I would go to the San Francisco Pen Show. That was important to me for 2 reasons. I wanted to take all the ink bottles that I didn't use with me there and find people who would want them. I also wanted to know what I loved and had, so I would be able to purchase maybe 1 or 2 bottles at the San Francisco Pen Show without buying the same color over and over again. I have a tendency to buy similar shades in the same color family, so maybe I'm still going to end up doing that, but that was the idea. Getting through all of the bottles before the San Francisco Pen Show. In theory, I was successful. I did not end up using 7 bottles. However, those are the ones that I had used already in 2024. So technically, I have used all of the inks. So from June 1st to the 15th, which you can see right here, I inked a pen daily. That is 15 pens. Then in week 25, I inked 3. The week after, I inked 3. That brings us to the end of June. So in June, I inked 21 pens. I used 21 ink bottles. And then in July, I skipped week 27, 28, and then I came back for week 29. So in the middle of July, I inked 3 pens. For week 30, 31, and 32, which brings us to August 11th. I inked another 12 pens in July and August. So that brings us to a total of 33 pens inked, or 33 bottles of ink put into pens. I think that is a really big number, even though it wasn't done in a single month. Using that many inks during that time was eye-opening. It was successful. My original idea was to continue for 2 more weeks, but I'm currently at this stage right here in the middle of August. I'm not really using my pens so much. It's hot. I'm not having a lot of time to use my pens, and so it didn't really make sense for me to continue inking pens and using ink, or actually not using inks when I didn't really use my pens. I still have several of the pens that I inked. I think, let's see. This is a constant inked pen, so this doesn't count, but I still have 1, 2, 3 from June inked. I have all of these 3 inked. I still have this one inked and this one. So I think I still have about 10 pens inked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I still have 9 pens inked, and that's enough to last me through the rest of the month. This doesn't mean that I failed. I just adjusted the plans according to how I'm currently have time and I'm using the pens. And that was the whole project. Using my inks that I have in bottles in pens. So what exactly did I do every time I inked a pen? I swatched the ink in my ink journal. I inked up the pen. I wrote down the first impressions of the pen and ink combo in here. I would swatch the ink color. Let's see, Lamy Pink Cliff would be blue. So I would swatch it in here. I started an ink bottle log because you can never have too many swatch books. So later on, the last 2 times that I inked pens, I would make one of these pages and then write down what pen it is in and how I enjoy using this. So that is something that I still need to fill in for all of the pens that I have inked but not yet logged here. In the beginning of June, I finished up my 31 inks, 31 pens, 31 letters project. I just had so many people on my list that I continued writing a letter every day. So this is June. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I wrote 15 more letters. So that's when I used many of the pens that I had inked. And I also used the pens in my creative journal. here, here, here again. Let's see how June looks here. Here I used the Urban Lierre Sauvage. Did not use it here. I used them in here. So that was another way that I would be able to use my inked pens. Now, currently, I am not writing much. I completely ceased writing letters recently. I don't even think I have one going at the moment, but I started a new journal. I want to do some kind of morning pages, and so I've been trying to remember that while I'm eating breakfast, I want to just dump all of my random thoughts in here. And so that's how I'm currently experiencing the pens and inks, and that's what I did during the summer. One of the big reasons why this whole writing with my pens kind of fizzled out was because of my puppy. It's hot out, my days are longer, and I don't have as much downtime in the evenings or in the afternoons as I used to have before it got so hot. So there's a natural stop to using my pens. And so I did not anticipate that, but that's also the reason why only inking 3 pens in most of the time worked out to my advantage. I did not ever feel like I was missing out on something having only 3 pens inked. Now, I know that's not technically true because I didn't dump the ink out during that week, after that week, but I definitely did use the 3 pens for that week more and didn't concern myself much with any of the other pens that were still inked. Now I need to change my paper here. So the reason why I stopped early is because I still have quite a few pens inked, as I just told you, and it just doesn't make sense to ink even more pens when I'm not really using the pens that I have inked up for that specific week. And I think that's totally okay. I like that I didn't say or tell myself this project is failed. I just simply adapted the project to my current needs. Now, what are my thoughts on all of this? First of all, I loved it. Having a project is something that is totally working for me. I did the 31 inks, 31 days, 31 letters in May. It kept me going every day, inking my pens. I was able to organize this project so that it would fit my life, and I would be able to enjoy my hobby in a way that I hadn't done before, and that was awesome. The Summer of Bottles was a different approach with the same things, but it still felt kind of fresh, and it was a lot of fun. I am currently thinking about doing 30 inks, 30 days in September, but even though it's just barely the middle of August, I'm already thinking that maybe, even though 30 inks, 30 days in September would be something that not just me would be doing, everybody else or many other people are doing 30 inks, 30 days in September, I might just push that back one more month, because I'm already thinking about you know, as I did with the Summer of Bottles, this project needs to work for me. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to push it just because everybody else is doing it at that time. Maybe I'm just the odd one out that needs to do it in October, and I'm totally fine with that. So after using and focusing on samples for quite a long time, and especially during May, it felt so good to use bottled inks. I don't know why my brain works like that, but when I'm using a sample, I always feel like I have the pressure to find the perfect pen and ink combination right away, because there's not a lot of ink in that sample, which is not true. It looks like there's just a little bit of ink in the sample, but what if it doesn't work out? And I also always have that thought in my mind of, do I want to purchase a bottle of this ink when I use samples? When I use bottles, I don't have those thoughts because I already have the bottle in my possession. And it's really great to know that this doesn't need to be the perfect pen and ink combination. I can try this, and if it doesn't work out, next time I'll try it in a different pen. I'm not sure why there is such a different way of thinking about inks in bottles versus inks in samples for me, but that's just how it works. So I love that I have enough ink to see how it performs in other pens, how it performs in multiple other pens. That is awesome. Before I started this project, I went through all of my fountain pen inks and bottles and compared. This is where I swatch my fountain pen ink, my ink bottles. And I swatched all of the ones that I had missing cards. I went through them and sorted them by inks that I hadn't used before, by inks that I have used, and stuck them in here. And then I just randomly just started at the beginning and went through. So these are all the pens and the inks that I have used. These are the ink bottles that I haven't. And so these are all the inks that I had identified as inks that didn't work for me. Robert Oster Stargazing is one that I let go even before I started the project. Same with Diamine Deep Magenta. Same with Pilot Blue Black. And lastly, Cheerio Water Buzz from Pannonia. These were the inks that I let go before I even started the project. But those were still let go as a result of conducting this whole thing. These 4 inks, Campfire Crackle from Robert Oster, Violet Blackberry from Lamy, Azurite from Lamy, and Turquoise from Mont Blanc are inks that I have decided to let go after inking them in pens. This ink is just so close to many of the turquoise inks that I have that I can just pass it along to someone else. This one didn't work for me. Same with Violet Blackberry and Campfire Crackle. I have the perfect page open. This ink is just, I like Earl Grey tea so much more that I don't want to fuss with the added shimmer in this ink, and so I'm going to let that go as well. So 4. And then I also had this ink. I used this for the very last time, and then my bottle was empty. And then unfortunately, after I had inked this and used it in a pen, the next time I wanted to re-ink that pen, I saw a mold on the surface of the ink bottle. I haven't checked the pen since I cleaned it out thoroughly if there is still mold on there. I don't think so. I actually think that the mold occurred after I inked the pen in this project here. So that was inked on June 19th, and then I swapped out my nibs, and then I inked up the pen. I wanted to ink up the pen again, and it didn't. It showed mold, so I immediately cleaned out the whole thing. So that is 10 bottles that I let go and that I took out of my fountain pen, my ink bottle collection. One of the reasons why I dove into this project in the first place was to use what I have instead of always focusing on and buying new things. It did not work too well. I still had a healthy coming and going of pens. So I started June with 35 pens. I ended June with 30. I started July with 30, of course, and then ended July with 33 pens. I don't think I have purchased any pens in August yet, but I am going to the San Francisco Pen Show in August, and so I don't think that I will not purchase any pens in August. Now, inks, I started out with 38 in June. That is already taking into account the 4 inks that I let go before I started the project. And I am ending July with 34 inks because I actually purchased some more Pilot Iroshu ink bottles. I want to buy at least 1, possibly 2 inks at the San Francisco Pen Show. I already know that I'm collecting some that I ordered in a group buy in May or April. So I'm definitely bringing in more inks when I get back from San Francisco. But I'm not really concerned about getting more inks in. I think the amount of inks that I have is still healthy enough for me. I don't feel like I am overwhelmed with ink bottles at the moment. So that is how this project worked. Now, I would like to share with you my favorites and least favorites, and then we will figure out some controversial thoughts that I had after this whole project has ended. All right, so my favorite new discovery of the ones that I hadn't put into a fountain pen yet is ta-da-da-da, Lamy Pink Cliff. This is a very wet ink. It works extremely well in this Sailor Pro Gear Slim Mini with a medium fine nib. I have tried it in a different pen and it was a disaster. So it's a favorite new discovery with a caveat. I really love this pen and ink combination, and I think this is a perfect pair. My least favorite ink is already left the house. So I'm just going to write it in with my black pen. I will show you the swatch is, of course, another Lamy ink. Lamy, violet, blackberry. I'm really happy that I did not purchase the what was the ink called? The purple ink that was re-released this year. I think they are very similar. I cannot. So Violet Blackberry is right here somewhere. Here. This ink is my least favorite one of them all. The best ink, it's basically like a new discovery, but just more like, I don't know why I didn't use this more, since I have a bottle of this, is Lennon Toolbar Oyster. It works really well in this Pelikan M800, but I have had it in other pens as well, and it's been performing really well. This is an almost black, dark gray, and I am really drawn to that at the moment. So I don't know why I haven't used it more. I really want to use it again very soon. I mean, I still have the pen inked, so I can use it all the time. This is another one of those inks that I don't have anymore. She's a 10, but Vinta Tabuan is moldy, and that's a very sad face emoji here. She's a 10 because of the purple inks that are chromo shading. This was definitely my favorite one of them all. This is still legible. It's shading nicely. There is some chromo shading here, but it's just a really nice bright purple that wasn't too light for me to read. I feel like this is similar to Sailor Manu, Neko Yanagi, and all of those in that color scheme. But the difference between this one and the other ones is that this is legible for me. Now, unfortunately, it got moldy, so she's a 10, but nope, not working for me anymore. So my conclusions after this about inks, my controversial opinions about inks, is number one, an ink that has too much shading is an illegible ink. So that's a big nope for me. My second controversial opinion is Diamine Raspberry Rose is the new Writer's Blood. It's wet. It's a almost burgundy color, but it's just the tiny bit lighter than Writer's Blood, which makes it just so much better. So where did I swatch that? Here. This is the new Writer's Blood. I think this is what I wanted Writer's Blood to be. So I'm so happy. Let me know if that's something that you agree with or no. One other one is dry inks should be forbidden. And the last, fourth controversial opinion is that there is such a thing as an ink that is too wet. Yup, here I said it. Now, one other thing that I have been talking about recently quite a bit, and one thing that I noticed just how much it annoyed me, was my biggest fountain pen pet peeve. So I identified it now. And that is, I identified my pet peeve. And that is pens that don't seal well. So the ink gets darker. I'm actually at the point where I am considering selling pens just because this happens. Yup. All right. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble. I know this was more of a talkative video than showing things to you. I really had a lot of fun during June, July, and August working on this project, going through all of my fountain pen ink bottles, starting a new pen and ink bottle log. This is what I call this. I don't put any samples in here. It doesn't really make sense. And I hope you were inspired to make up your own challenges, your own projects that make you engage with the things that you own and get to know them better. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Until then, bye.